Welcome to Stumpf Fiddle. Today I'm going to show you how the magic happens. It's a shop day today, so I'm going to build a Stumpf Fiddle. Not sure what I'm going to build yet, but I have no doubt it's going to be cool. So the first thing I always do when building a fiddle is you got to lay it out. This is the best part. I enjoy doing this quite a bit. So I just start by going through my inventory here. Actually, let me show you what I've got here. These are all my pans. Obviously, I've got stacks of pans and my bells. Excuse me. High bells, cow bells, more pans, tambourines, different blocks. You know, bells and springs and all kinds of knick-knack paddywhacks. You never know what you're gonna need. Oh, stickers and decals, stencils, my rubber. These are like my bottoms. I use Kongs a lot. They're not too bad. Let's find something. I love these enamel pans. Got a great color to them. Got a really small lip. Maybe go with something blue. Blue or white. Okay, the other thing to consider is what kind of shaft am I going to use? I've got some already started. This one was one I got the wrong color, purple, so that one's ready to use. I got some white ones here. These are kind of cool. Oh, should I make a mini? I do like minis. Maybe I'll make a mini. I went with the white shaft. This has already got a nice finish to it. It's kind of like a beveled ridge. I could still work with that. This top screws on. I might just keep that right there and size it down a little bit. So I know I'm going to use this and I'm going to cut it. So then going with the blue Kong. This kind of just, can squeeze onto the end. Again, the end, this will be, I think I'll make this the top. But either way, you can kind of set it up so you can see what it'll look like. The pans I chose, well, I like this color, but I'm having a hard time matching up something to get through this rim, because what you got to do is you got to use a rivet gun. So I've done this before. You take a smaller pan, put it on the inside, run the rivets through the front face, and then you can attach this to the shaft like so. So that's the plan. Okay, then we got some wood blocks. I pulled 4 blocks that I've got. Always like to listen to them and determine the sound I want. And also like size and color. I'm making a mini. So usually that means I'm going to just pick the smallest one, just because it balances out nice. This is the smallest one. Here's how I would play it. There we go. I like it. So we set that right there. I have a standard design I like to follow. Because I like to play a certain way. I like the block, cowbell, and high bell on the inside. Speaking of high bells, I grabbed a couple. I already took the piece out, so it's hard to get the sound. This one sounds better. I like the size and shape. So we kind of set that there. And then we got some cowbells. I got 1,000 of these little. These are just cheap little cowbells you'd get like free at a football game. And then I bought this nice fancy guy. Boy, it's got a great sound. I saw this at a music store and I hadn't seen one like this before, and I was like, dang, I like it. So maybe it's time to use it. It's got that blue. Let's look at some springs. Spring is gonna really make a big difference in the sound of your fiddle. If the tighter you run it, the more distinct that vibration is. And sometimes if you have it really sloppy, it's kind of like, you know, it makes a difference. So lately I've been building it so I can just stretch them down. Whoa, stretch it down nice and easy. Some of the first fiddles I made, man, that was the hardest thing. Like, I'm like stretching there. I'm like just trying to like, oh, just get it hooked on, and it's like it doesn't need to be that tight. So this is actually pretty good. You kind of just estimate the stretch. I can feel the tension. I like this. Are these the same? They're the same. Bell time. I always put some bells on. You got to. Just a matter of how many. I usually run them down the bottom shaft. A couple like that. I got some big ones too. I might use a pair of these big ones. Put those right there. Sometimes I'll put them on the inside too, just to kind of fill a gap. The vision is coming together. It feels too long. It just feels too long. I'd take more off. There we go. Now that I've made the cut and adjusted the shaft the way I want it, we're going to piece it back together. Get a rough idea if it fits. And I'll put those bells back down here. And then I think I decided to use 2 bells. I'll put that other one. I kind of like to do it like that. Yeah, plenty of room to grip the handle. Dun dun dun! Hardware time. So basically I'll work at the top of the fiddle all the way down, finding what I need to piece it together. So the first thing I need are some hooks. Oh, okay. The hooks are for my springs. So I got a couple ways of doing that. I do either like little bolts, or sometimes I use like tiny little like cabinet hooks. I think I'm out of those, and I don't really know where I'm looking. That's the good thing, or the fun thing about building a Stumpf fiddle. I mean, I know how I like to do it, but technically there's 1,000 ways to do it. So those are my bolts. I'm not seeing those little hooks. Those are my washers. Those are my nuts. And if you're not cranking on your springs too much, you can just use sometimes just like a little screw in kind of thing. All right. Looks like I gotta go to my emergency stash. Emergency stash. Oh, this is where I keep fiddle gold. Fiddle gold. Where are we at? Maybe some eye bolts. After a little hunting and gathering, turns out things are coming together all right. I was able to find, it's called a single Garmin hook. These I really started using a lot. That's for my springs. And then what I do is I take a extra pan and put it in there so I know I've got it. So then next, I was able to find these pieces, these big U brackets. So what'll happen is those will go through the block and fasten onto the shaft. So I've got what I need for those. And that covers my springs. My small bells, all I need for these is just a screw. I'll have to drill that hole out, but just a screw is good. So I put my screw in there. Same thing, I've already found it, sized it out. Put that in there. The other thing that goes with that, I like to use a rubber washer between the shaft and the bell. That makes it really resonate. Sounds great. So I got my rubber washers for that. So that takes care of those. And then I got my jingle bells down here. I was able to find a few small eye hooks that covers these two. And then some bigger ones I'll use to fasten on. You know, we'll just hook those like that and bend that tight. So I've got those, check. That covers that. This pan, I'm going to use, I've got these white rivets. That'll kind of contrast on the blue and match with the shaft. So I got my rivets, check. And then to fasten the pan, I'm just going to use some screws. I'll end up using 3, this fatty in the middle, and then just tap it in with 2 others. When I'm making a bigger fiddle, a lot of times I'll run a bolt all the way through, because once this is secured and riveted on, you can't get to it again. So you got to make sure your pan's on good. So I got those, check. And then I got the BBs for inside the pan, check. And the last thing I'm figuring out is this cowbell. It's heavy, and you got to make sure that it's secure. So I'm brainstorming this. I'm going to probably bolt through. And if I do, that may or may not change how I fasten the bell. Because sometimes I like to go through, and then you can double up on your fastening with the bell. So getting closer. Well, I figured it out. We're going to use this bolt right here. This is the one that came with it. Problem is, it's not long enough to get through the shaft. This one I found very close to long enough. But if I want to double up the connection, it's not quite long enough. But I found this with the head on it. You need that head so it doesn't twist inside this gap. A normal bolt, I mean, I found a bolt that fits in there, except you got to be able to fasten the head, and you can't reach that. So that's going to go there. Got a lock washer and a nut, and I'll drill this hole out a little bit bigger so the smaller bell will go on top, because that'll be an easier connection than this one. This is going to be a tough little drill out, just the way it's tapered at the end. So I'm not going to mess with that. So we'll do the swap, and boom. Now I officially have all the parts. done. Oh, that's what I was afraid of. It sucks it down nice and tight. It's not going to work. Back to the drawing board. I tell you, it's good to have a plan, but the plans always change. And that's what makes building Stumpf Fiddle so much fun, at least in my mind. It's like a puzzle, and you find the pieces as you go, and then all of a sudden it doesn't fit. Time to adjust, adapt, and adjust. Endeavor to persevere. I found the solution. So this pan was not fitting in there right. It was floating too much. So I found a smaller pan that sits nice and flush, and it will still be able to fasten in the back. Problem is, there's no lip to rivet. So we changed the way we fasten. I should be able to run a bolt all the way through this one, through the shaft, and run that tight, and she's not going to slip. So far so good on the new plan. We've got some holes drilled. So what happens is we'll run the bolt with a washer. Through. There we go. So that'll go nice and tight. Let's get the BBs in there and seal this up. Listen. This is one of those work smarter, not harder scenarios. Time for springs. We'll start with the bottom. Want to make sure that your hook is going that way. I'm going to run this pretty much all the way tight to this Kong, and I'm just going to tap them in.
I'm a carpenter.
No, I think I need a better bit. It's a little too small. And that's too big. How's my mustache look today? I tell you what, the never-ending quest for a good drill bit. I think I found it. Zinga, baby. Top side. Well, you gotta make sure it's square, because otherwise you want your spring to run nice and across. I kind of made a mark. God dang it. Here we go again.
I'm a carpenter.
She's tight. What do you say? Let's string it up. Double it up. Oh yeah, baby. Yeah. Next step to do here is to put on the wood block I lost audio on my video somehow. Go figure. I'm so savvy. But anyways, the U-bolts are used, and the wood block has pre-drilled holes, except the U-bolt is bigger than the holes. So you see, I'm going to have to drill those out wider so I can push those through and then fasten them to the shaft. Took me a couple tries to find the right size bit, but I figured it out, and you can see I've widened my holes out. There was a little bit of chipping on the wood. It's really delicate work. You got to be careful. But even the chips that happen, you can see that faceplate covers it, so it's really not that big of a deal. So put the bolt on, and then you got to kind of squeeze the bolt together just a little bit to push it through. There we go. And put your plate on, put your nuts on, and boom, block installed. Putting this cowbell on now. I've opened up the size of the bell here so the bolt fits. Made a mark on the shaft where she's going to go. Now I got to drill through. The tricky part is obviously drill straight. I've done before. You go sideways and then your bell is potty wampus. But I just eye it up. Turns out you should measure twice and drill once. I drilled a hole with the wrong size bolt, so the hole was bigger than my bolt, so I had to go find a new bolt. By just some miracle, I found another one that worked, that fit the hole I already drilled, so kind of got lucky there. So then you just kind of slide it through, and I also had to drill the hole in the bell bigger, which I'm doing right now because it was sized for the other one. So after a couple of slight adjustments, I always find a way to make a mistake like that. Finishing touches with this little bell. Cinch this up tight. Last bell to be fastened. Didn't do a great job drilling this out. As you can see, I didn't quite hit the center. So we'll just have to make sure that I put it in at the right angle. So we're going to put that in right about there. We'll just tap, tap, tap it in. One of the last steps is putting on the jingle bells. So you got to peel open the eye hook, slide it on, pinch it back, and you will do a pre-drill into that and then screw it in. A very important finishing step is to cut off the excess bolts. If you do things right and plan right, you get the right size, but otherwise you use what you got. You can't have this hanging there. Even this back here, I'll cut that off. So I bust out the Dremel and a little grinding bit and go to town. So I'm running out of bit. So I'm going to replace this. I was just, as I'm unscrewing this, I'm going to put a new one on. Reflecting. I used to do this with a hacksaw. And that's why I got this big scar here. I was sawing through a bolt. It was like this, a bolt like this. But I had my hand below it, and I'm sawing And I'm sawing, and I went through the bolt, and wham! Almost went through my thumb. Boy, that was a bad one. That was a bad one. Even one of the last steps is then we'll give these bolts a file. Make sure there's no edges. On these two, take off any burrs. And then we'll give it a dust, because all that grinding makes a mess. So we'll give it a dust and a file. Oh baby. If you would have asked me when I woke up today, was I going to build a Stumpf Fiddle? That was kind of the last thing on my mind, but here she is. We finished it. Not too bad. The last thing I want to do is kind of pick a stick. I've got a couple different sticks here to choose from. After a little bit of playing, this is like my go-to. The pan doesn't resonate quite as much as it normally would because of the design. So because of that, I think I want a heavier stick. So something with a head. So you can just hear that difference. Heavier head. But I also like the sound of wood better than this plastic synthetic head. I like this one. Although I did find this little blue stick, I thought it might look nice, being how this is kind of got some blue colors to it. Not bad, but it's just too light on the. I like a heavier head for this pan for sure. Oh man, I guess we just have to come up with a name. All right, so there you go. That's how you build a Stumpf Fiddle. Peace.